Hey everyone, it's Shannon and welcome back to the Also Archives. Today's video is the second video in this series that I have named A Double Shot of Medical School Admissions. So this series is covering the entire process of applying to medical school from start to finish and a couple of different sprinkles of my experience along with it. So I'm hoping to share my experience in an effort to help you through your journey and maybe give you some insight into things that I did that can maybe help you along the way. If you haven't watched the first episode of this series, which is called The Coffee, please go and check that one out as well. That one discusses my GPA, MCAT, what I did to improve my statistics to apply for medical school, and then also tidbits about how to choose medical schools to apply to and how to get good, solid letters of recommendation. So please check that video out as well. I have called this episode The Sugar because I believe that the sugar that you put in the coffee is what really makes it good. For me, I can't drink black coffee. I can't drink unsweetened coffee. So the sugar is what makes the coffee enjoyable and it makes it memorable. The same as with your medical school applications. When you have your clinical experience and you have solid essays and everything is tightly packaged and sent to these schools, that's what makes them be like, like her application is really good. Let's offer her an interview. So please stay tuned if these topics are interesting to you. And if you know any pre-meds that could find this video useful, please share it. Please like and subscribe as well. And if you have any specific questions for me or topics that you would like me to cover in the future, please hit the little bell next to the subscription box just so that when I do respond to your questions and comments, I want you to actually be able to get those notifications and read what I have written back to you. So I want to engage with you all along with sharing my story. So please make sure you hit that bell so you get the notification. So please stay tuned and we'll get started with the sugar. So I'm sure all the pre-meds who are watching know what the difference is between the primary and secondary applications to medical school. But just to give you a quick overview, if you are not sure about it, the primary application is a big comprehensive application that is sent to every single medical school that you apply to. So this will include your whole academic record. You can write down all of your extracurricular activities, research publications, clinical experience, you name it goes on this application. Then the secondary applications are what you get next. So if a school wants to learn more about you, they will send you the secondary application. And this is really just a series of essay questions that the school wants you to answer to just get more information. So those are very broad descriptions about what a primary versus secondary application are. To me, even though one is more general and one is more specific, I think that the essays on both of these applications are extremely, extremely important. So with that being said, my main suggestion for anyone who is working on their medical school essays right now, I would say to do a lot of self-reflection and a lot of research. You want to try to make connections between your experiences and how they relate to a career in medicine. So for example, I'm a scuba diver. So to me, I thought that scuba diving was something that made me unique. So I wanted to find a way to connect diving with a career in medicine. So what I came up with was that scuba diving has allowed me to travel to various places around the world. And that in turn has exposed me to a variety of different cultures. And I've been able to interact with people who speak different languages, who follow different religions, they have different political beliefs, and they just have different lifestyles in general. So as a physician, my experience with diving will help me as a physician because I will come to medicine with an open mind, with respect for different cultures, for different people, and that will make me a more accepting and culturally aware physician. So as you can see, that takes a lot of thought to get to that point, but I'm sure if you have a favorite sport or a favorite experience that you had when you were younger, I'm sure if you reflect on those experiences, you will be able to connect that with your love of medicine. And I think using your experiences is what makes your application stand out. And it doesn't have to be an experience of you saving someone's life or, running into a burning building and saving a little baby or something. But as long as it's something that you experienced that impacted you and made you a better person for whatever reason, I think those are the experiences that admissions committees want to see in applicants. And that's what shows them, you know what, I think this person will be a great physician one day. Let's give them a shot. The second thing will be, specifically more so for secondaries, is to do research on each particular school. So for me, to be honest, the first time around when I applied, I did not do a lot of research. I had secondaries coming in like 3-4 times a week, and I was just trying to crank them out and get them submitted within a week or 2 weeks of when I received it. So in doing that, I wasn't really putting in a lot of effort into them. I wasn't digging deep and trying to really give them an answer that had anything more than a surface level response. But the second time around when I applied, I did tons of research. I looked at the mission statements of each school and figured out what about that school is appealing to me and why do I think I will be a good fit at that institution. So I would suggest do your research, reflect on those questions, and try to write a heartfelt, emotional response. So overall, I think if you do these things that I've talked about, if you take your time, don't rush through these essays, and really do your research and get people to edit and review your essays, I think that when you send them to the admissions committees, they will be able to see exactly why medicine is your career of choice and why you think you will be a good fit at their institution. All right, so the next aspect of sugar to your application is your clinical experience. So I wanted to just share the story of how I came to the realization that becoming a physician is the right thing for me. So I've done previous videos about my EMT certification and being a medical scribe, and also patient care transporter. So all these things are kind of the stages of the healthcare process, I guess you could say. So the EMT is the person who picks the patient up when they call 911 and brings them to the hospital. And then as a medical scribe, I get to see the patient come into the hospital, and I get to see the management of care in the emergency department. As a patient transporter, I get to take people from the hospital and take them back home after they've received treatment for chronic illness, after they've been in the ICU, and things like that. So to me, I know that I belong in the healthcare setting at baseline, but I know that I want to be a physician because I want to see the care, the management of patient care from start to finish. Being an EMT, you only get to see the first part of patient care. As a patient transporter, you're only seeing the back half. And as a medical scribe, you're only getting the middle. But as a physician, I'll be able to be there with that patient from the time that they come in to their moment of discharge. Of course, this depends on my specialty, but really the thought of being in the hospital and working in the hospital, I know that's where I want to be. So that is kind of how I came to the conclusion of why I wanted to become a physician. But the only way I would have came to that conclusion was if I had these various clinical experiences to kind of show me the way. So can you ever have too much clinical experience? My thought is never. You can never have too much clinical experience, because to me, clinical experience is what will really give you the answers to why you want to go into medicine in the first place. If you never experience patient care from its best to its worst, how will you know that a career as a physician is right for you? How do you know you will be able to handle the emotions that come with dealing with families and people who are experiencing loss and people who are experiencing chronic illnesses? You won't know that unless you get to see it firsthand. So clinical experience, I think, is a super, super important part to your application. And I know that medical schools feel the same exact way. I've actually spoken to representatives from medical schools who have said that there have been students who have applied with a 4.0 GPA and a 520 on the MCAT, and they do not get accepted to medical school because they have zero clinical experience. People tend to think that a high GPA and a high MCAT will outweigh the lack of clinical experience, but that's absolutely false. How will the committees know that you know what a doctor does unless you have clinical experiences? Your GPA and your MCAT does not convey why you want to be a physician. That's just showing that you have what it takes, but that doesn't show that you have the character and the substance to be able to perform and be able to communicate and interact with people in a good way. So that's why clinical experience is super important. And I would say to get started now, if you haven't and you're thinking about applying, get started now and do as much as you can. It's only going to help you in the long run. And finally, after you have all of your primary applications done, you have your letters of recommendations locked in, you have all of your essays completed, when should you submit your application? And the answer is as early as you possibly can. As early as you possibly can. I believe that when I applied, the application opened, I guess it was like June 1st or early June. The day after it opened, my application was already submitted. That's how early you have to be, because if you think about it, a lot of schools operate under a rolling admissions process, which means that applications are reviewed as they come in on a first come, first served basis. So if your application is on the top of the pile, they're going to get you reviewed first and they're going to offer you an interview first. Versus if you apply a month or two into the cycle, you already have thousands of applications that might have compiled ahead of you. So keep that in mind when you're asking for letters, when you're trying to write essays, to get these things in a timely manner, because time does matter when you're applying for medical school. And finally, after you have all of your primary applications done, you have your letters of recommendations locked in, you have all of your essays completed, when should you submit your application? And the answer is as early as you possibly can. As early as you possibly can. I believe that when I applied, the application opened, I guess it was like June 1st or early June. The day after it opened, my application was already submitted. That's how early you have to be, because if you think about it, a lot of schools operate under a rolling admissions process, which means that applications are reviewed as they come in on a first come, first served basis. So if your application is on the top of the pile, they're going to get you reviewed first and they're going to offer you an interview first. Versus if you apply a month or two into the cycle, you already have thousands of applications that might have compiled ahead of you. So keep that in mind when you're asking for letters, when you're trying to write essays, to get these things in a timely manner, because time does matter when you're applying for medical school. In keeping with my coffee metaphor, sugar is what makes coffee taste good. Strong essays and strong clinical experience is what makes your application good. That's what makes you stand out. And you do not have to be perfect. Your GPA, your MCAT does not have to be perfect. You do not have to have the perfect essay experience and, all this ending world hunger and all these fabulous things that you've done. It doesn't have to be that, but it does have to be something that can convey why you want to do this career in medicine. Because to be honest, these admissions committees are looking for people who they know will be committed and heartfelt and determined physicians who will work for their patients one day. And they can see this, they can see your interests, your values, your morals, they can see your motivations all through your clinical experiences and how you convey yourself through your essays. So these are the reasons why your essays are so important, because you haven't had any time to interact with these committees yet. Everything that they have on you is all on paper. So if you can get enough into these essays and enough conveyed through your clinical experiences, this will give them enough motivation to want to invite you for an interview. And honestly, that's sometimes all you need is an interview to show who you are, and they get to see you face to face. And that could be enough for them to say, hey, I think we want her at our school, or we want him at our school. So I'm confident that if you take your time and really focus and think through these essays and get your resume built up with these experiences, you will be able to answer these questions that they ask with confidence, and you'll be able to give them a solid response back on whatever essay question they may ask you on a primary or secondary application. So I hope you all have enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments for me, please put them down below and I will absolutely respond back to you. For me to make sure that you saw my response, if you could please like it once you read it, that would be great, because I want to make sure that I'm not only responding, but that I'm able to engage back and forth with you all as well. And then also make sure you hit the little bell next to the subscription box so that you actually get the notification when I do respond. So again, thank you all for tuning in. We have one more episode in this series, which is the cream. That's the final episode, and that will cover how you go through your interviews. I'll discuss the MMI format, the virtual format due to COVID, and then I'll also do the one-on-one as well. I will share tips on that. I will also talk about, what to do after you've interviewed. Do you just sit and wait, or do you reach out to schools? So these will be some of the topics that I will discuss in the final episode. So please like and subscribe and share this video. I want to be able to help anybody that I can and answer any questions I can for future pre-meds. So thank you all again.